Thanks for supporting us on Patreon. Tonight's executive producer, once again, for the Sleepless Knights podcast is Anita Rivnik. Keep your hands and feet inside the car at all times. All systems go.
Attention, Sleepless Knights. Thank you for consuming this OSI 74 product broadcast, live from the Black Knight satellite. For optimum performance and safety, your host, Mr. Lobo, asks that you please listen to these instructions carefully. When in a hospital or other healthcare facility, observe the restrictions on the use of electronic devices. Switch off before boarding an aircraft to prevent interference with communications systems. Do not operate this device in the presence of flammable gases or fumes, chemical plants, or where blasting operations are in progress. Always listen hands-free while driving a vehicle. Failure to observe these instructions may lead to immediate termination. It's time now for the show to begin. Thank you. Have a very pleasant evening.
You're not dreaming. This is your host, Mr. Lobo, and our first feature of the night is the Sleepless Knights of Insomnia podcast by running the snack bar is Paul Sanders. Hopefully you've got your pants on at the snack bar, Paul.
Look, you can't tell me what to do, all right?
I just hope the health inspector doesn't come by.
He was pantsless as well.
Oh, God, it's a brave new world. Yeah. And it's this is the thing that I want to talk about tonight, Paul.
What, masks on, pants down?
No, not masks on, pants down, Paul. The thing that I want to talk about is I feel like people want to be entertained more than ever. I mean, I know that in times of trouble, people rely on entertainment for escape. And we've got a lot of troubles. This world's been through a lot with the Abes. Well, first it was the apes, then the Abes, then the Abes and the apes, and then the rampant technology, and then now we've got chronic diarrhea.
And you forgot the kaiju. Right?
Oh, yes, and the kaiju. But the chronic diarrhea is intergalactic at this point.
Yeah.
It's not just a problem here on Earth.
Well, I'm hoping that the kaiju and the chronic diarrhea on Earth are two separate things. Hopefully that they didn't cross, because I wouldn't want to deal with kaiju with chronic diarrhea.
Yeah, boy. We don't want shin diarrhea.
Shinneria?
Shinneria.
Rhea Kong?
I got the shins real bad. No, so what's interesting to me is that, I've been producing content on a shoestring, which is much harder to load into a camera than standard film.
Mm. It tends to ruin the camera.
Yeah, typically putting a shoestring into a camera is the end of the camera. I don't know why we keep doing it.
And then having to get the camera repaired usually costs us more than our production budget. We should just stop doing that.
Yeah, shoestring is just a bad idea for filmmaking in general. But
maybe you should put it on shoes.
Oh, that's a better idea. See, Mr. Lobo doesn't typically, at least not recently, wear shoestrings. I've been wearing beetle boots for a while now, which I enjoy.
How do you get them on? Aren't beetles really tiny? I mean, are we talking about kaiju beetles?
Well, yeah, they are really tiny, but you get more of them. So if you break your beetle boots trying to put them on, you just put on another tiny beetle boot. They've got so many legs. That's why you get so many beetle boots for your buck. Mm. I didn't make that clear. Not that was a very good joke. So in this world right now, I'm producing episodes in my house, not full episodes of Cinema Insomnia yet, but we're getting there. I've been upping my game, kind of trying to shake the rust off. We've been doing these watch parties every week. Of course, you and I have been creating an hour-long podcast every week. I created the Stay Inside show, which is basically a bunch of sideshow performers hosted by Mr. Lobo. We filmed the whole Blobfest spook show, during this chronic diarrhea pandemic. that we're enjoying. And the thing that I've noticed is that I've always been on the bottom and I've always not had any money. So, I'm still producing. Whereas a lot of the big production companies, I mean, these huge production companies that are putting out these multi-million-dollar movies, $400 million movies, they've really slowed down. And then the movie theaters have been closed. The standard walk-in movie theaters have been closed. And, they're greenlighting all these things that they'd shelved before, and things that we thought would never see the light of day, shows that would have been canceled are being brought back because people want an escape. They want it to be entertained. I mean, I am getting so much more response to my show now than I have in a long time because people really appreciate the content that's being created. And so whereas the big boys have been slowing down, the independent productions and the retro stuff has really been flourishing. I've been going to the drive-in. Now I'm trying to not to go out very much because it's, we're still in a state of emergency. But, I went to go see Mad Max. I went on Saturday to see Mad Max and the Road Warrior. And the place was packed with cars. And they were making money hand over fist. They had a great setup as far as how people could get their food and stuff from the snack bar and be safe. And everyone had a great time. Everyone was kind of giving everybody else sort of acknowledgement and happy interaction from a long distance. But even though we were all together, we were all kind of enjoying the drive-in, enjoying the movies separately but together, I guess. But it still felt communal, which is sort of what movies are all about, is to sort of enjoy things as a community. And, it felt so good to sit there and eat popcorn and look up at a screen and be surrounded by people who are also enjoying the same movie. And to see something like drive-ins, which were dying. I mean, we used to have, there used to be 60 drive-in movie theaters just in Pittsburgh, according to Tom Savini when we interviewed him at Monster Bash, which means that there were thousands and thousands of them in the country. And now there's only 300 of them left. But the 300 that are left now have been flourishing. I mean, they were doing amazing business when I saw the Mad Max show. And then last week I did Zombie Fest, which was Return of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, and Return of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, and Reanimator. And they had, they had all these decorations of like, a graveyard and, tanks full of trioxin. And we had a guy dressed as the Tar Man wandering around that you could take pictures with. And, we were enjoying our zombie French fries and watching the movie. And again, packed. The drive-in that was only open only on the weekends for certain months out of the year and was barely chugging along is now opening up for more days during the week because so many people want to go. And this is happening across the country where drive-in movie theaters are flourishing. So it's interesting that with the world turning upside down, all of these people that used to be at the bottom are now seeing themselves on the top. The biggest moneymaker at the drive-in last weekend, Paul, can you guess what it was?
Hold on, let me see here. Debbie Does Dallas?
Close. I think Debbie Does Dallas would do amazing at the drive-in. But
I believe if it was the 70s, it would be in the drive-in, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably. But one of those ones that was like way out on the interstate,
I think ours used to play blue ones.
Yeah, you try to crane your neck as you drive by, hoping your parents didn't notice you trying to get a peek.
I seem to remember because ours at that time was only a single screen, and I seem to remember waiting in line to get in to see Bambi, but you could peek through the bushes and you could see a little flesh going on because they were playing something a little. It was odd to be playing something like that right before Bambi, but that's also a memory of a young child, so it may not even be a correct memory. I might have been something else. Could have been
Maybe that was a different
Midnight
Bambi.
Rider. Maybe it was.
It could have been
Bambi.
another. Yeah, Bambi. Well,
Bambi
hello,
does
Bambi.
Dallas.
Yeah. Oh no.
But what was number one?
The number one movie, Paul, was the original Jurassic Park.
Wow.
Which is what? Is that 1992 or when did the first Jurassic Park come
91 or
out?
92? I don't know. We were having
So
latency issue, so I had to shut down everything on my computer. So now.
Oh, that's fine. But, I mean, this is a movie that is, 30 years old almost?
Mm-hmm.
25 or more years
1993.
old? 1993. That was the number one movie in the country and mostly playing at drive-in theaters. And then the movie that was the number one before that, as of the recording of this,
Behind the Green Door.
No, it was some independent horror movie that was shot on Zoom over the internet. So I just really feel really excited because I feel like that the independent stuff and the retro stuff is getting a second wind. And I just feel like maybe that's a chance for losers like us to make some content and break through.
Well, by the time we get our stuff in there, it'll be Hollywood find a way, right?
Yes, that's what Jeff Goldblum says. Hollywood always finds a way.
He says that in Jurassic Park, exactly.
Yeah.
Hollywood finds a way. I think he says that right after where he goes when he sees Hollywood and he goes, "That's a big pile of shit."
I'm a genie.
Oh.
So anyway, so Paul, you have a drive-in near you, right?
Yes, and they've been playing. They upgraded to 3 screens now. Well, they've been at 3 screens since I was in high school. So since the 90s, it's been 3 screens, and it's Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
Whoa!
Back to the Future. And insert other 80s movie. Oh, Goonies was the other one.
Oh, wow!
And they have a thing up there, just request a movie and they'll put it on a screen, whatever movie you want. So I'm going to request Debbie Does Dallas.
Any movie you want. Wow!
A double feature per screen too. So it's 3 screens and they double feature each of them.
Wow, that's incredible. And what's the name of this theater, Paul?
The theater out past Asteroid Z.
The theater out past Asteroid Z? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. That's your local theater.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
or otherwise
cool.
known as the Point Drive-In.
Okay. Yeah. And then also at Becky's Drive-In, which is another drive-in here on Earth. It's in Pennsylvania. They're going to be showing Ghostbusters on 4th of July.
Nice. They should play Twister just specifically so that we could see the scene where the tornado goes through the drive-in, ripping up the screen while in the drive-in. Do you think you'll feel like the tornado's actually?
Yes, you're part of the show.
Part of the show.
Yeah, they should find all those movies that have drive-in scenes and do a whole weekend. Well, you know what? I'm going to actually try and make a list of movies that I want them to show at the drive-in on Asteroid Z. And why don't you make a list of movies that you'd like to see on the drive-in? And we'll be right back with more Sleepless Nights of Insomnia.
The legend of Frankenstein once again brings terror and nightmare to the screen in Lady Frankenstein. Joseph Cotton is Baron Frankenstein.
But it's devil with his face. I don't care what he looks like. I want him to live.
Sarah Bay is Lady Frankenstein.
That is what they call your father's life's work, a monster, and they're right.
They are not right.
She's beautiful, she's evil, and she'll do anything for love.
Would you like to have my body bend to you? Would you like to make love to me?
She creates a new, more terrifying monster, and only the monster she creates can satisfy her strange desires. Using her beauty and her scalpel, she cuts deeply into men's hearts.
Yes, you're right. Kill him.
There has never been a movie like Lady Frankenstein. Rated R.
And we're back. Be sure to tune into our radio station. Make sure you can get the sound in clear for this. Although if you don't have the radio station, I don't know how you're hearing us
right
now at the drive-in.
Tune into 104.3 AM.
That's right.
Or is it like 57?
Yes, 104. That's pretty high.
Too high, isn't it?
I'd
Like
call
57.
a doctor. I think at 98.6 is what you really want.
98.6. 98.6.
98.6 body temperature. Anyway, it's funny because people are like, oh, we don't have drive-ins. It's weird how many people think there are no drive-ins anymore. Like, I feel like in the Sleepless Knights, Mr. Lobo's Cinema Insomnia fans group on Facebook, like once a week, somebody's like, are there any drive-ins anymore? There are about 305, I think, drive-ins left. And
nationally, or
what?
Is that a national number, or is that in Pennsylvania? Okay.
Nationally, yeah, no, just in Pennsylvania. No, just within a 5-mile radius of this house. No. I believe that there are 305 drive-ins in the country.
Wow.
There used to be thousands. And again,
I know that there are 2 here. Like, there's one that's been here, like I said, all my life. And then there was another one that's about an hour away from us that was converted into a flea market for the longest time.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them do that. There's flea market during the day, driving at night.
And then it was just flat out a flea market. Just
a flea market.
Because there was a time, remember there was a time when they did the digital conversion and a lot of the theaters couldn't afford the projectors, so they had to fundraise.
Yeah.
And this was one of them that suffered it. It was already a flea market, and then they kind of brought it back. They restored the screens, and they brought it back, and then the whole digital conversion thing, and then they had a fundraise. So then it went back to a flea market for a short time, but I think it's back. I think it's finally back as an actual functioning drive-in. Yeah.
Well, that's really exciting. That's really exciting.
We have 2 of them near us.
Well, the Mahoning Drive-In never closed. I think they've been open, and I could be wrong, but I think it's over 60 years for that drive-in. Someone can tell me and correct me later, but they've been in that same location, I believe, for over 60 years, and it's never closed as a drive-in. The big problem for them is that they never made the transition to digital.
Okay.
So they ended up making a decision about 5 or more years ago to just decide to just do 35 millimeter shows and have a full retro program and only do retro shows. And so they're the only 100% retro drive-in and 100% 35 millimeter drive-in. To my knowledge, that is their claim to fame. They do have the ability to do some digital, and there's a great documentary called At the Drive-In that shows how they accomplished that. And the way that they did it was they bought, I think, 9 prosumer or consumer projectors and put them all in a shed near the screen, and then they aligned them all together like with a test pattern, like registered them so that they would all project exactly in the same spot to get the brightness up enough to where they could put video up on that giant screen there at the drive-in. So that was their makeshift, sometimes solution to have some actual video. And when I watched the Mad Max show, when they had their Mad Max weekend, they actually had some of the actors and crew from the original Mad Max films up on the screen from Australia. They had video of them that they were able to put up on the screen to introduce the movie.
Nice.
So yeah, it was pretty cool. Like the guy who was Toe Cutter and the guy who was, Wes, who was the punk rock guy who has the mohawk. They were able to introduce the show from the screen via video. But for the most part, the Mahoning Drive-In in Pennsylvania, is a 35 millimeter film only establishment. And it's a whole experience. Like, you can buy, at least before Chronic Diarrhea, you could buy memorabilia and posters. Actually, you still can out in they have little tent where you can buy posters and memorabilia. And they used to have, I believe, VHS tapes and and DVDs and all sorts of things that you could get. So it's not just a movie experience; it's a whole kind of cultural "we love movies" kind of experience at the Mahoning. One of the things that's kind of exciting that's happening now, and it hasn't come to the Mahoning Drive-In yet, but Sam Sherman, who produced a bunch of low-rent slash-and-burn drive-in movies in the 70s, has actually kind of come out of retirement. He's sort of like a self-proclaimed P.T. Barnum of B movies. And he's been traveling with Al Adamson's Dracula versus Frankenstein, which is, if you haven't seen it, I can't quite describe it well enough to you. Some people can't take it. Some people love it. But it's definitely a 70s low budget version of the classic monsters. But at the old shows, they used to give out Dracula rings to people, and they had all sorts of gimmicks. Another movie that they distributed called Mad Doctor or Blood Island, they had a green fluid that you would drink to protect you from the monsters in the movie. So there's a lot of kind of cool ballyhoo and gimmicks that they used to do with these drive-in shows that Sam Sherman produced that they're actually bringing back, and they're touring with that. And the actor who was Dracula, Zandor Vorkov, I believe is what his name was. Zandor Vorkov. He basically has been traveling with Al Adamson's Dracula versus Frankenstein and putting on the Dracula makeup and jumping out with his cape and I don't know if they were jumping on cars, but I love this spook show treatment that they're giving it. I love that in 2020, in this wild dystopian, technologically overrun, chronic diarrhea-laden world, that we still can have a good old-fashioned drive-in movie spook show with a couple of cheeseball movies and a lot of fun. I want to get my Dracula ring. I want to take a picture with Zandor. Damn it. So this is the thing that's exciting to me. And it's like, I want to travel with my show. Like Paul, you were saying that drive-in near you that they want suggestions for what to show up on the screen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe I could just, say, hey, let's do a cinema insomnia night. I could just play one of my episodes up on the screen and it doesn't have to be Saturday or Sunday. It could be.
What is it? 3 times. So was it a sextuple? You could have a sextuple feature where it's cinema insomnia on all 3 screens.
Oh wow, sextuple. Are there 6 screens?
There's 3 screens, but they play 2 movies. 2 movies per screen.
Oh yeah, okay. So yes, wow, a sextuple-a-thon, and maybe on Mondays. What do they got going on Monday? Nothing.
I don't know. Reach out. Let's find out.
Mr. Mondays.
Mr. Mondays. Or maybe we can downplay the Lobo. Be like Mr. Lobo Mondays.
Yeah. Mr. Lobo Mondays.
That way you still have the wording.
The double M. Or we could just change one of the. Maybe we could call Tuesday Lose Day.
Tuesday Lose Day.
So it could be Lose Day, Lobo Lose Days.
Tie Day Friday.
Tie Day Friday. But yeah, I would love to get my ambulance, put all my sleepless nightingales, my midnight movie nurses in an ambulance, and we could travel with all our buzzers and gimmicks and certificates of assurance and $1 million life insurance policies if somebody gets pink eye while watching the movie.
And if you're able to, it'd be interesting is that if you could time it to be with the Facebook groups,
the watch party,
so that you're doing the live portions of the watch party at the theater. That'd be a little bit hard to pull off, but we were doing it at the theater, and then it's broadcast to the watch party.
I would love that.
And then you just sync up the video to the watch party itself.
I could build a little stage on top of a van.
might be a little bit too complex for what we have in mind, but
build a little stage on top of a van with my rocking chair, and then I could just pull it up right in front of the screen, and I'd be up on top of my van in my chair, and then we can just live stream it on Facebook.
There you go.
Then the cameraman can just pan off of me and just show the screen while the movie is on.
And then
I'm getting excited.
Then the high cancel of human consumption attacks after that.
Well, you know.
What I was thinking is like you could do the live portions during the live portions, but then probably do, or even do like, say, depending on when the watch party is like an hour delay. Yeah. So we're actually shooting the live video, and then we have enough time to actually sync it up to the feed, and then you can actually have the video portion of the show actually be the video portion. We're not shooting a screen, we're actually just playing the video. And then when it comes back to the live portion, we shoot again, upload to Facebook, blah, blah, blah.
That would be pretty wild and exciting. I'd love to
In
try
theory,
something.
it could
I'd
work.
love to try something like that. Even if I just did an intro from the drive-in, and then the rest of it was just already canned, and it was just my show up on the screen with all of my intros and everything.
Right.
All my wraparounds, you know.
Right.
I could do just an intro up on the top, and then I could just hang out in the snack bar and meet everybody, and you know,
stay 6 feet away.
Yes,
because you don't want to spray them with that toxic chronic diarrhea.
I don't want to get diarrhea. I don't want to give diarrhea, except diarrhea of the mouth, which is what I give on my show through the screen. That's safe. But in real life, I don't want to get anyone sick. But it would be great to see people from a distance and maybe autograph some DVDs or something and slip them through the night deposit, or I don't know. Try and get them a video. Have a guy in a gorilla costume just slip it in the window of their car. Anyway, we'll come up with some better ideas of how to make this work while we take this break. Thanks.
Attention Sleepless Knights. All systems are go! This is your fully functioning broadcast certified narrator with an exciting program change announcement. Your normally scheduled Sleepless Knights pODDcast with your host, Mr. Lobo of Cinema Insomnia, and producer co-host Paul Sanders of Bestow TV is about to be taken over by a space pirate radio drama of intergalactic proportions.
I gotta correct you on that. Space Pirates.
Featuring Mr. Lobo and characters from the Cinema Insomnia and OSI 74 universes caught in the grip of another ear-splitting podcast hosted by that pantsless producer Paul and his bitchy and sometimes glitchy space pod guidance computer Gal 9000.
That's slightly offensive. I'm sophisticated AI.
Will Paul finally get rescued from deep space?
We got him. He's in the Delta Quadrant.
Is Miss Mittens really a gorilla now?
No need to get hostile. I'm not going to argue with a 60-ton gorilla.
Are Mr. Lobo and OSI media mogul Alan N. Smithy the same person?
It's not like a Superman Clark Kent situation we have here.
Is any of this going to make any sense?
Working. Abacus responding ever.
Will anyone bother to answer any of these questions? Don't ask me. I just read these words as they are written down for me. So get ready to blast off into a densely scripted and ham-fisted adventure and find out for yourself. Look out, Sleepless Knights, because for one brain-smashing hour, the Wakeless Days rides again. This is your humble, yet proud narrator signing off. We now return you to your normal, dreary lives. For now.
Doesn't get it better than that, right? So come join the fun at
patreon.com/Sleepless Knights podcast.
This is Mr. Lobo, and we're back with more of the Sleepless Nights of Insomnia pODDcast, emphasis on the odd. And man, the world has gone topsy-turvy. It's interesting in that, what we've been talking about tonight, that in the absence of mainstream media, with Hollywood crumbling in the wake of diarrhea, We have the high-tech stuff and the low-tech stuff really flourishing. On the low-tech side, we have Ghostbusters playing at the drive-in, which is probably going to make millions of dollars on 4th of July weekend. And then on the high-tech side, all of these like Zoom meetings and watch parties. And like I said, there was the Zoom conversation-based horror movie that was the highest grossing thing in the country. We're having all these weird online events that are just getting all kinds of attention and business. And speaking of Ghostbusters, you had some interesting news, right, Paul?
Yeah, like I was checking out some stuff on YouTube, and one of the suggested videos that started appearing on my feed is Josh Gad. And I sent you the link. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but Josh Gad had been getting a lot of the actors and directors and whatnot back together to reunite and they do it over Zoom, and then the actors reunite and they talk about any retro movies or anything in that kind of genre.
Reunited Apart, is that the name of it?
That is the name of the show.
Some of that show.
And he had the Ghostbusters together. They put all the Ghostbusters together. And it was actually kind of fun to hear, because I know, like, you and I, during one of the episodes, we had talked about John Candy possibly being considered for the role of Louis Tully. But during that video, it's right out of Ivan Reitman's mouth that he's like, wow. Yeah, he was cast originally, and he was doing this accent and that accent. So it was kind of one of those nice things, because you and I kind of sometimes fret where it's like, oh, sometimes we say something and we're functioning off of old memory. Maybe we're off, or maybe we're remembering it wrong or something like that.
Well, we did have that whole thing with the Super Collider from 2012 that destroyed the neighboring universe and created a Mandela effect where we're remembering something from an alternate reality. That happened to me with the show when we talked about Dukes of Hazzard. I thought it was Merle Haggard who was the narrator of Dukes of Hazzard, but it's actually Waylon Jennings somehow is the narrator of Dukes of Hazzard.
I'm glad you read that YouTube comment.
Yes, but I think that that's part of the beauty of a podcast, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be right. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be dumb and loud and confused and maybe drunk and tired and want a lot of attention and want to complain. That's really all you really need.
And maybe drunk again.
For the listeners at home, why don't you tell people who was in this, other than Ivan Reitman, who's the director? I think people would be excited to know that perhaps Bill Murray was in there.
Bill Murray was in there.
Dan Aykroyd was in there.
Ivan Reitman, Jason Reitman, who is doing the new movie, right? Correct.
The what is it? Ghostbusters United? Ghostbusters 5000? What is it called? The new one. Afterlife.
Ghostbusters, right? Trying to forget Ghostbusters 2016, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, trying to forget Girlbusters, right?
Pretty much most of the surviving cast, minus Rick Moranis, he never really came in.
Yeah, but I feel like would be amiss if we did not mention Winston Zedmore's character, Ernie Hudson,
and
Janine. who is
Ann Potts.
Annie Potts. She's so great. I love her, Annie Potts.
I would suck if you ever forgot her name.
Yeah, I would feel like a jerk, because I feel like her and Winston get the short end of the stick, because I feel like those two characters are so great and have so much heart, and if they had more scenes in the movie, they would have given it that much more. It just didn't work out that way. I actually feel like Janine could be a full-fledged Ghostbuster. I think that, like she is in the cartoon. I think they could have gone that far with her.
She could have been she is the fifth member. She could be the fifth member on the team, on the floor, on the ground.
She's got to have a jumpsuit,
and hawking popcorn.
Yeah.
Isn't that what she used to do? Was the Orville Redenbacher? She used to sell the Orville Redenbacher back in the day.
Oh, was she the spokesperson?
I believe
for
so.
Orville Redenbacher?
Do I have to look that up too? I mean, do I have to instantly know that?
The guys from Pop Secret tell me they have big news. Bigger is better. This is news. Think kernels, they tell me. Pop Secret has these new kernels. Fellas, don't keep me in suspense. What does it mean? They say their kernels pop up bigger, so they're lighter and fluffier. I say they taste even better, and that's news.
Pop Secret with new, bigger kernels. Perfect popcorn is our passion.
Call me anytime with news this big.
There's a bunch of commercials now with her. I think it's for an insurance agency or something, but it's her dressed as she was in the '84 film Ghostbusters, with the Ghostbusters in the firehouse with Slimer, and she looks the same as she did. You would just think it was a cut scene from one of those. I think it's like one of those things to do your taxes or ebooks, or I forget what I wish I could remember what it's funny, like all great commercials, you remember the commercial, but you forget the product.
Yeah. It's like, I think TurboTax.
Is it TurboTax? I
think it's TurboTax you might be thinking of, but
again,
speaking of not giving out good information on a podcast.
Yeah.
And shoddy memory.
Yeah. But again, this is the 3 a.m. conversation. And I feel that that's part of the magic of the 3 a.m. conversation, is what seems to make sense when you're talking at 3 a.m. versus any other time. So we've got all the original Ghostbusters, surviving Ghostbusters, we should say.
Right. I mean, they spend some time talking about Harold Ramis too, so it's not.
Oh boy, what a wonderful thing, Harold Ramis! Another incredible actor. I mean, really, that was like the Beatles of the paranormal. Mm-hmm. Those four guys. So to get them all together again for the internet, I mean, that probably makes a lot of fans at home feel good. I know I'm not really that much of a closet Ghostbusters fan, because I do love the Ghostbusters. Because a lot of times when I think I'm an adult, I'll see a Ghostbusters toy and go, oh man, I really would love to have that. Like for Father's Day, I got the Ghost Trap, you know, the one that slides out and then you step on the foot pedal and then it opens up, and then it's like it makes green light and it has all these great sounds, and then it closes up. It's so cool. And it's like when I was 13 years old and I saw Ghostbusters, I actually tried to build one of those, and I took apart my Star Wars Creature Cantina because it had the spring-loaded doors that the action figures would walk through, and I used that as the door for my Ghost Trap. That's how much I cannibalized my Star Wars toys to try to make a makeshift Ghost Trap. That's love. But yeah, I mean, I remember buying copies of Newsweek and Time because there'd be a picture of the Ghostbusters from an angle that I'd never seen before, because I wanted to recreate the costume, which is why I wanted a Ghost Trap. So I this is before the internet. If you were a cosplayer, which again we didn't even have a word for that, it was just basically nerds like to dress up. That was what we used to call that. And then, I would go and find, I got the Air Force jumpsuit. I got the knee pads and the cool Army belts, and everything I could get together. I taught myself how to embroider so I could make the little patch and make my name to go over my chest. I think the Ghostbusters had a huge impact. Just like if it would be amazing to get all the actors of Star Wars together. Is this Josh Gad working on getting on all the Star Wars people in one room? I guess you can't have Lupin and Leia in one room anymore.
I do not know. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I was looking through the history, and there's a boatload of them that's out there. Which I say boatload, it's probably like 8. But there's a bunch of them, because I think what's going on is that he's got a network sponsor, or he's doing it on, like, say, NBC or something like that. And then it's going to YouTube afterwards. But they're utilizing the whole Zoom thing, and everybody's trapped at home with chronic diarrhea, avoiding chronic diarrhea. So
right. It helps them on both sides, right? Because all the fans are stuck home.
Yeah.
And all the actors are stuck home because they can't work.
And so he contacts them, and then basically how the thing goes is that, well, that's all they're specifically talking about that movie, and they're geeking out about that movie. So they're all just having a good time talking about that movie. They'll do some lines of dialogue. They'll ask some trivia. Usually, eventually, Josh Gad will have another celebrity that's not involved with the film come in, and they'll ask a few other questions. Sometimes they'll have like trivia, or they'll do, he has some additional line reads or whatever. And we only hit the surface of who was on the Ghostbusters thing. I don't know if I want to spoil it people should go out and check it out. But there's actually a lot more than just the base people. There's a lot more other people that just show up as the video goes
really?
on.
Because I didn't watch the whole thing because I got called away. So that's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, you're gonna have to check it out. Ghostbusters wasn't the first one I watched. The first one I watched was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which was really fun. And then they do a tribute to John Hughes at the end, where they play one of the won't you da 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 da, that song.
Forget about me. Yeah. It's don't you forget about me. Won't you forget about me is a wholly different song.
Tomato. But
tomato. Won't, don't, same word. No, not at all. Totally different meaning. Maybe we could try to do that for all the shit movies, Paul. We could try to get all of the people together. Maybe we get all the kids from Monster Squad together.
Mm-hmm. Call up Trauma.
Oh yeah, Toxic Avenger. I'm sure. Let's get that cast.
I mean,
together.
I don't know if we could get the rights to it, but what they did with the John Hughes tribute is they played the song. They played clips of all the different movies. They would start the phrase of the scene, and then that actor currently via Zoom would finish the phrase. So they had all the actors come back, all the different actors. So you had like Chevy Chase doing some of his lines from Vacation, Beverly D'Angelo doing some lines from Christmas Vacation, Catherine O'Hara coming back and she's doing Home Alone. Yeah, it was actually kind of fun. It almost brought a tear to my eye because it was kind of neat where they brought all these people back and presented something that was a little bit more heartfelt, and it was for the fans and it was for the nostalgia of it all.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are on all sides are more appreciative of each other, more appreciative of the little things, more appreciative of all the things we were able to do together when the world was a little more open and we could all interact with each other.
Yeah.
And on that happy note, maybe we should go out to a break.
Won't you
forget about me?
Everybody knows when you go to the show, you can't take the kids along.
Driving.
You gotta read the paper and know the code of GPG.
A lot more than a movie there.
Then you gotta know what the movie's about before you even go. Tex Ritter's gone and Disney's dead and the screen is filled with sex.
Oh, nice. Drive-In, a film from Columbia Pictures, rated PG.
I hate to keep talking about Ghostbusters, but I just love Ghostbusters. I was talking before about how I just, I don't have the weakness for toys that I used to have, but every once in a while I'll see something that's Ghostbusters and I'll want it. Same in Star Wars sometimes too, but I think cosplays probably created that. Whereas even the toys, the consumer toys look very much like the screen props. Whereas when we were, the Ghostbusters toys of the 80s, it's like the ghost trap would be like blue with like a purple button, or you know what I mean? They didn't
25% different.
Yeah.
It's like the Aliens toys. Have you seen the Aliens toys?
No, I haven't.
Like the alien queen is purple, and there's like a red alien.
You mean the old ones?
No, the new ones, the ones that are on the shelf now.
Like
and we're like, why are they all different colors?
25% different. There's actually a Ghostbusters. Did you ever have Playmobil stuff, Paul?
Yes.
So when I was a kid, I had Playmobil, and I think they're from another country. Like I don't know if they're Danish or Swedish, or I feel like they're from some country where toys need to be utilitarian. But the Playmobil guys, they're kind of like maybe 3 inches tall. They kind of look like a Lego guy, but they have interchangeable parts, and you could put like a cowboy hat on them or a pirate hat on them, or, pirate sword, that, and all the sets usually were themed like that. But when I was a kid, they didn't have any like Playmobil licensed characters. Like that was just not a thing. Just like Legos, there was never any licensed Lego merchandise. You just used your imagination and you just use the interchangeability of those characters to play in different genres, but not a specific movie or TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a Playmobil Ghostbuster firehouse.
Oh yes.
And the car. And I'm thinking, oh man, I just wish I could put a little shelf in my dining room here, and just have the whole firehouse, and maybe have Winston working on the car,
And,
maybe Ray sliding down the pole, and just have it set up there, and maybe Slimer eating hot dogs.
There's a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man too.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yep.
They have a little I think hot dog cart with Slimer.
Yep. Yeah, and you can go get all those and then combine that with the they have the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine, so you can actually do a mashup and do a crossover.
Is there a Playmobil Mystery Machine?
Oh, hell yes. It was in the clearance. I was drooling over it.
What the hell? Oh, man.
It was missing a door, and it was in clearance, but it was still like $33. I'm like, for a missing door?
That was always the downside of the Playmobil stuff. It was a little pricey, Mom and Dad had to have good jobs for that to play out.
Or Playmobil it out.
Playmobil out. So the Ghostbusters, we've got the Ghostbusters. What is it? Ghostbusters Aftermath. What is it?
After
is
midnight.
It Aftermath?
After
midnight. Ghostbusters again.
After 2016.
Yes. Another Ghostbusters. What is the third one called? Afterlife. Right? Ghostbusters Afterlife. Not Aftermash. That was a different continuation.
Aftermash. Is that Radar?
Yeah. Right. I think it was just Potter, right? It was like Colonel Potter, Radar, and Klinger. It was just those three characters and their families.
Still overseas. Still in South Korea.
No, they're not. They were homestead. This was about stateside.
And with some PTSD.
Dealing with PTSD, having the shakes. Yeah, it was great. No, it wasn't like that. Anyway, let's not talk about MASH anymore. We're talking about Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters Afterlife. And you had said the director, which is it Jason Reitman, son of Ivan
Jason,
Reitman?
yes, this is the son, yeah. Which we both commonly call Max, because sons.
Every son of every famous director is Max. We've got Max Spielberg, Max Landis.
Max Brooks.
Max Brooks, right. So, Max Headroom, all of those. Could you? Okay, so the thing is that we were talking. This kind of ties in because a lot of the major studios are really putting the brakes on their releases because they're unsure about theaters. They're unsure about they don't want to. They're more cautious. The bigger studios are being more cautious.
And there's also there's legal issues too, because if they go to streaming, I guess that they discovered where they did was it Trolls, that Trolls sequel that came out. They made big bank out of that, but they have legal problems because that stuff's promised to theaters first. That's a first run in theaters, so there's still legal problems.
Which theater chain banned the company that put out Trolls?
AMC banned.
Was it AMC?
Universal, Comcast Universal.
So they basically said, "Look, you put this on streaming first. That's a direct violation of our agreement." And then Universal basically said, so what? We made more money on Trolls 2 than we made on Trolls 1, and we didn't have to give you any of it.
Right. And it was like AMC's like, well, then we don't need you. So that's like, that's fine. That's one thing where it's like a child's movie like Trolls, but then Universal has what? They have there's another Fast and the Furious movie.
Yeah, I mean Universal is probably next to Disney the biggest distributor out there. So, I don't know. I feel like the theaters playing hardball probably was a bad idea because they at this point I don't know if they need AMC theaters to make millions of dollars.
I mean the problem is I guess that
billions, I should say.
The people that the way the experts, air quotes experts, are looking at it is they're only comparing it with one movie, but will that work for all movies is the question.
Yeah, but I'm sure, I don't even think we have the laws anymore where the distributor and the studio can't be owned by the same company. So, Universal could just open their own theater and show their own movies. I'm sure there'll be Netflix theaters and, Disney Plus theaters, every what?
Hulu, Amazon Prime.
Yeah, right. Everybody will have their own theater chain. And again, if drive-ins are the next big thing, every empty parking lot in every mall could be a movie theater.
Right.
So who knows what the future is going to hold for movies? But what I was saying earlier is that, a lot of the big budget movies, including Ghostbusters, are getting rescheduled and set back. And you had said that Jason Reitman had some news about when Afterlife is going to come out.
Because I believe they asked him, or Josh Gad asked him, he goes, "Oh, when's the new movie come out?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, it's July 10th." And then Bill Murray's like, "Oh wait, does that mean I have to be somewhere?" And he goes, "No, don't worry. We because of chronic diarrhea, we've had to reschedule it." He says, "So it doesn't come out until 2021." And he goes, "It's really odd because this is the first time where he's not under pressure to get a movie out. He actually has time to just sit back in the editing room and finesse and tweak and hopefully put out a stellar project, something."
Yeah, that is interesting because usually, projects are under the gun. I mean, you think about what happened to the last set of Star Wars movies where they were just trying to squeezing them out and making all these changes.
Yeah, because was it the first new Star Wars movie got moved from summer to December, and then J.J. Abrams wanted to move it from December of that year to the December of the following year, and Disney's like, "Nah, it has to come out." And that's kind of could be some of the faults of that movie, just having to rush it through.
And maybe not necessarily the faults of that movie, but it ended up not necessarily being a strong enough platform to support two other movies going forward. They could have had a better plan for those three movies going forward had they had more time at the start to pre-plan.
So hopefully this is a blessing for Sony, especially for Sony, who's known to kind of drop the ball constantly when it comes to forcing out their properties.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like there's a whole other podcast to hear too, where I feel like it's almost like a business plan where it's like, okay, well, let's just do a horrible job.
Right.
And then everyone will talk about it. And then we've lowered the bar sufficiently. Everyone's going to go pay to complain to see our failure. And then we can come back like heroes and go, well, here's the movie that we should have done all along. And that project doesn't, like, let's say Ghostbusters, and I don't want to keep picking on this 2016 Ghostbusters.
Right.
But honestly, this next this next Ghostbusters project doesn't have to be better than the first Ghostbusters. It just has to be better than the 2016 Ghostbusters. It's like the Tonight Show. Whoever's the next host of the Tonight Show, they don't have to be better than Johnny Carson. They don't have to be better than Jay Leno. They only have to be better than Jimmy Fallon, right?
That's a low bar.
Yeah, right. So I feel like that's what CBS is doing with Star Trek. It's like, okay, how do we just freaking ruin this show so that anything we do is going to be genius for going forward?
Well, hopefully in this time of chronic diarrhea, people are, we're not, execs aren't running with their heads chopped off, and directors and producers aren't running around with their heads chopped off and everything else. Everybody's breathing down everybody else's neck because we have to get this out right now where we have more time. Where it's like, hopefully, because we have more time, that equals a better product. That's what I would hope. I'd hope that for Ghostbusters or Wonder Woman or Black Widow or any of these that are extended into this longer time. But then there's also inverse where, well, we've got more time, so now we've got more time for executive meddling as well. So you got the good and the bad there.
I was thinking that too, because I remember when I used to work in TV news at an ABC TV station, and Brian Shields, who was the director of the producer of the news, he always said a great thing to me that I always think of. How many producers does it take to change a light bulb?
Well, one with another 37 how to tell him how it's done.
That's a good answer, but the answer is that it only takes one producer, but they keep changing it and changing it and changing it and changing it and changing it. And I think that is another problem of having more time, is that if you have more time, you take more time, and sometimes you don't commit to anything. You just keep meddling and just keep changing and just keep fussing and finessing. So, I mean, George Lucas is still fussing with those damn movies. They don't even belong to him anymore. He's running into the edit room and making Greedo say McClunky. in the latest release.
Somebody
of
made
the
him say
original
Cool
Star Wars.
McClunky. What is that? What is that? Rodan for bullshit?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. God,
But I mean, I'd hope that we get the positive out of this rather than the negative.
Oh yeah, sure. And I think that really just depends on what are the individuals that are involved.
I mean, at the end of this, is if you've got this extra time, if you get an extra year and you still botch this, you still fuck it up, then there's got to be more problems.
Yeah, it's going to be hell to pay if this falls on its face in a year.
Yeah.
Especially from the fans. But I'm kind of excited that, like I said, a lot of these big projects are getting postponed. A lot of the big studios are getting postponed. I'm kind of enjoying this time of, wow. I mean, it's like the kids are running the candy store now. We've got all these, all this new technology with people doing these sort of shows that are shot in quarantine or shot at home. And then the other side of it, like all this old retro material that's getting a second life, and all of these kind of weird, fun projects that maybe wouldn't get that much attention if business were as usual.
Right.
So now I'm thinking about, wow, well, this is our moment, Paul. We got to make content. We got to put our best face forward, because the demand for content is bigger than ever. The output for demand is smaller than ever. This is a chance to really grab attention. I mean, should we just start making horror movies in my basement on the weekends?
I don't know. I've seen your basement. I don't know if I want. Although it's freshly painted, from my understanding.
Well, you're the one down there painting it, so you tell me.
I mean, one could only hope that we had Sundance and the indie filmmakers in the '90s, and we had YouTube kind of changed things in the mid 2000s. So hopefully, chronic diarrhea is something that's going to at least alter entertainment moving forward in the positive.
Well, and I think that always happens in times of trouble. I think the arts become more valuable to people. And a lot of the true artists rise to the top. We get to really see some wonderful, amazing, relevant, and creative work come out of all of this potentially depressing times.
Now, did you just say that shit floats to the surface? Did you just call me a turd? Is that what you just said?
We'll just leave that for next time.
You have been listening to the Sleepless Knights podcast, or should we say pODDcast?
pODDcast.
Emphasis on the odd. Our theme is by Mars Homeworld at Deadhouse Music. Our opening announcement is by Ophelia Necro. She does a radio show called Suicide Watch. And you could reach Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com, or find me on YouTube, YouTube/Mr. Lobo. MISTERLOBO. Mr. Lobo on Facebook, Facebook/MR.LOBO, or on Twitter, at Mr. Lobo, MISTERLOBO.
Or you can find myself, Paul Sanders, or better known as Bestow TV, at Bestow.tv, on YouTube /Bestow TV, on Twitter at Bestow Prod, PROD, and on Facebook, Bestow TV.
If you want to place an advertisement with this podcast, and gosh, why wouldn't you? We could be talking about you right now. Contact us, Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com. That's MRLOBO @CINEMAINSOMNIA.com. Or support us on Patreon. Patreon supporters get to hear this podcast before anyone else, and a lot of other great stuff, right, Paul?
Sure.
Doesn't get it better than that, right? So come join the fun at
patreon.com/Sleepless Knights podcast.
That's
patreon.com/Sleepless Knights podcast.
Please stay up with us next week for another Sleepless Knights podcast. Or should we say, pODDcast.
pODDcast.
The best thing about being an insomniac is never having to say goodnight.
Good night.